everybody, welcome to the channel. So we're going to continue on with all the cars I've owned, all 37. Now we went through kind of the first half of them. Not sure if it's quite half or if it's more than half. I didn't count them, but we went through the first half in the video yesterday. We're going to go through the rest of them today. So hopefully yesterday's video did good and today's will do just as good also. Maybe not, but I shot the video, we're putting it up. All right, next, Xterra. That's where we left off. I bought the Xterra new in 03. It's been in my family ever since. I own the Xterra. You know, I traded the yellow Nissan Frontier that I talked about in the other video. If you've not watched that video, you probably should watch it first because it'll tell you the first half of this video. But I traded the yellow Frontier in on the Xterra, which is an automatic. And I drove the Xterra for a while. I really like it. Kind of wished it was a supercharged version, but it wasn't. I'm good with that, no big deal. Doesn't get great gas mileage as most Nissan trucks and SUVs don't. But I drove it for a while. Then I decided, I think I might want to buy a house. Just so happened that my mom and dad were getting divorced at the time, so I bought their house, which I still live in now. We're thinking about moving. This was a good starter home, but we're thinking about going to a bigger house and maybe a pool and stuff like that. But that's not part of this video, just a little insight. So when I bought the house, I didn't want the Xterra payment to go along with it. So my mom bought the Xterra off me with some of the money that she got out of the house when she sold it. And I bought her Mazda Protege. It was an 03 Protege. It had 35,000 miles on it, pretty low miles. She bought it brand new as well. And I bought that off her, paid cash for it, so I didn't have a car payment. So, you know, it all worked out. I had a house payment now, but I didn't have a car payment. So, you know, it worked out. It was about, actually, my Xterra payment wasn't much less than my house payment because I got a good deal on the house. Then again, thanks, Mom and Dad. So, had the Protege for a little while, and I wound up getting a Honda Civic. It was an 04 Honda Civic, and I don't even remember why I got the Honda Civic. Tell you the truth about it, I don't remember why I bought that. That's pretty bad that you've had so many cars you can't remember why you bought some of them. But I wound up buying a Honda Civic, and I actually let my wife drive that for a little while. That Honda Civic it's had like 3 or 4 clutches in it now. Not clutches, but transmissions. I actually put a transmission in it because it went out on me. And then I sold it, and the lady drove it, I don't know, 30,000 miles, and it went out again. She put a transmission in it. Then she sold it to her cousin, and she drove it 20 or 30,000 miles, and the transmission went out again. I don't know what the deal is with that Honda Civic, but I'd stay away from those Honda Civics if they're all like that, because every 30, 40,000 miles, it's not worth putting a clutch in. But I doubt they're all like that. Probably just bad luck on our end. But after I sold the Civic, my wife started driving the Protege, and I actually bought a V8 Explorer. It was an 03 V8 Explorer. It was a really nice vehicle. It was a really, really nice Explorer. It was not an Eddie Bauer edition, but it did have a leather interior. Had a lot of power in that V8 for what it was. It had some coil pack issues. I have a habit. If I own a vehicle and it starts giving me problems, I don't own that vehicle very long, because a lot of times I go on long trips. And when I go on long trips, I want to be able to rely on the vehicle that I'm driving. And if something starts giving me quite a bit of issues, like some of my Ford trucks did, I get rid of it. And when that thing started having some issues, the coil pack issues and stuff, I replaced a couple of them. And I was like, I'm not keeping this. So I took it to CarMax. Don't do that. Man, they'll rip you a new one. Golly bum, they offered me nothing for that thing. I took it back home and sold it 2 days later by advertising it in the paper for $1,800 more than CarMax offered me for it, and the guy about ripped my arm off because it was so cheap. That is how much less CarMax offered me for my Explorer. I sold it 2 days later, and the guy was ecstatic because he'd been looking one for a while and couldn't find one, and mine was so cheap, he was wondering what was wrong with it. I told him I'd have some coil pack issues. I seen that guy about 6 years later. He never had any more issues with that Explorer. Nothing. Again, my luck. I got it fixed, sold it. But when I sold the Explorer, I wound up getting a Nissan Altima SER. God, I like that car. That was a super nice car. It was charcoal gray, had blacked out windows, charcoal gray wheels. If you've never seen an SER Altima, go look that up. They're not like your normal Altima. They got like ground effects. The wheels are real nice. Two-toned interior. Had the 350Z engine in it. It was a nice car. Then again, after about 30, 40,000 miles driving it, had an EGR valve issue. Fixed that, didn't trust it anymore, hit the bricks. Maybe I just get bored with these things. About the time they start having just a small problem that I fix and it's perfectly good after that, I'm bored with it and want something else. I can't help it. In between the Ford Explorer and the Altima though, we had a couple of secondary vehicles. When I got married, my wife had a Ford Focus. It was an 02, it was red. We got rid of that very shortly after we got married, maybe a month or two into it, we got rid of that. That was a secondary vehicle. Her primary, but when we got married, she started driving either the Civic or the Protege, so it became a secondary vehicle, and that's why we got rid of it. And we also had a 2000 Ford Mustang GT. She had that as well. Really liked the Ford Mustang. It was pretty quick, had Flowmasters, had a K&N intake. It was tuned. It was a pretty nice car, but we never drove it, ever. It just sat up there. We never drove the vehicle. Her brother wound up needing a car, and we sold it to him really cheap. I mean, the car had barely 100,000 miles on it. It was a 2000 model, and we sold it for like $4,000 just to help him out. I help out a lot of friends like that sometimes. Whenever close friends or close family need something, I try to help them out. And we helped him out by selling him the car. I think it's still booked for probably almost double that, but he didn't have a lot of money, so we helped him out. Sold it to him for like $4 grand. He drove it for a little while and he wound up trading it for a newer model. I wish I'd known that because they probably didn't give him nothing for it, and I would have bought it back and then put a supercharger on it. But, you know, looking back, 20/20 hindsight. So after the Altima, and the reason I got rid of the Altima wasn't just the EGR valve. Like I said, I fixed that, put a brand new one on it, had no more issues with it. But I drove it to the Hyundai dealership with my stepdad. He was wanting to buy a new Hyundai Genesis 4-door. When I pulled in there, they had a 2-door Genesis Track Edition that was jet black, Brembo brakes, V6. Oh, that car was sharp. Oh, man. If you've never seen a 2-door Genesis Coupe, go look those up. They are awesome looking cars. And I bought that, and I really liked it. And I had full intentions of when I bought it to change out the wheels and tires. And when I got it, I realized I couldn't do what I wanted to. And wheels and tires on that car was an odd size. They were a 19 and they were offset, so you couldn't rotate them. And they were like $1,300 or $1,400 a set at the time for a cheap set. And I was like, holy crap, you can't rotate these things. And you're going to spend at the wazoo on a set of tires, and I think I put 1,200 miles on it in a year. And the main reason it had that many miles on it was my grandmother passed away that year, and I had to drive it about 120, 30 miles round trip about 4 times over to North Carolina for the funeral. So that's the only reason it actually had so many miles on it even then. But I traded that off for my first F-150. This is where it goes downhill. I should have kept the Genesis and just bought tires. So, bought my first F-150. It was a 5.0. It was a 2012 model, I believe it was. It was a Lariat edition, crew cab, leather, sunroof. It was pretty loaded. Didn't have a backup camera, but other than that, it was pretty much loaded other than not having a backup camera. For all the options it had on it, I really couldn't believe it didn't have a backup camera. And I drove my wife crazy. Because every time we would drive by one, you know, the backup cameras on the Fords back then had like the emblem was big. That's where they housed the backup camera. I'd say that truck's got a backup camera. Every time. She wanted to punch me in the face. It drove her nuts. But that truck had a lot of electrical issues. Tons of electrical issues. It was in the shop all the time. And it was fixing to run out of warranty, and I was raising Cain with Ford over that. This is where I thought I was getting another good deal. I was actually going to go buy a Tundra at this time, and I told them that. And they said, oh no, come out here, we want to show you something. They had a demo model, had like 7,000 or 8,000, 9,000 miles on it. It was basically a brand new truck. Still had new car smell in it. 2013 Ford F-150 FX4 EcoBoost. He's like, drive it, I've not had any problems with it. Well, of course you've not. You've got 6,000 miles or 8,000 miles on it, whatever it was. I drove it down the road. It was ridiculous, the horsepower and torque this truck has in that 6-cylinder turbo. Ridiculous. Oh my God. I fell in love with it as soon as I drove it. And I took it and showed it to my wife, and she's like, yeah, buy it. It's got a backup camera. She didn't even care about the electrical issues. She's like, it's got a, just buy it. Just shut up about the backup camera. So they actually sold me, its sticker price on that FX4 was like $60,000, and I've said this in other videos. Because I was raising so much cane and everything about that, and I was making such a big scene, they sold me that $60,000 truck for $38,000, and I got a 100,000 mile bumper-to-bumper warranty with it. But tons of issues with that. As I've talked about in other videos, the intercoolers condensate, shut down limp mode on the interstate, about got us killed a few times. Stay away from EcoBoost. This ain't about that. This is just about the vehicles. But in between those, my wife's had some cars. Those trucks were just mine. While I own these trucks, my wife, which is our vehicles, which is why I was including them. If I need to drive it, I could drive it. It was a Nissan Altima Coupe, an 09. It was red, 6-speed manual. My wife loved that car. Why she traded that car, I don't know. But we traded that in on a 2014 Honda Accord. I don't know. She liked the Accord all right. She drove it for quite a while, but we wrecked it after like 1,200 miles of the beach. A woman run straight out in front of us with nothing we could do. It was her fault. T-boned her. Did like $12,000 worth of damage to it. Got it fixed back. Couldn't tell it. My wife drove it about another 3 years after that, but we always knew it had been wrecked. After she did that, she traded that in on a Honda Civic Si, which we have today. It's a 2018 Honda Civic Si. And that's what she's got right now. I think it has like 6,000 or 7,000 miles on it. And I traded the FX4 Ford in for my Tundra that I have now. It's a 2016. I've had it a year this month. November the 22nd or 24th will be a year. There'll be a 1-year video out on that. Love that truck. Best vehicle I've ever owned. Best vehicle ever. Love my Tundra. Do not regret it at all. I would do that 100 more times if I had to do it over with. Can't praise Toyota enough. And actually, in the fires in California, I just read today there was a guy that was saving a bunch of people in his Tundra. The truck got burned up some. The bumper got ripped up. Toyota is giving him a brand new truck for saving those people. You can't beat that. I mean, you cannot beat that. I'm sure there's people did that in other brand vehicles. I don't see them getting a new truck. Just saying. So honorable mentions that I can't remember when I had these vehicles, so I put them at the end. It's bad when you have enough vehicles that you can't remember what order you had them in. So there's going to be a few of them right here that we're going to run through just to kind of end the list on. I can't remember where they were at. But I had an Acura Integra GSR. It was a 98. It was my second Acura Integra. I built it up. It had nitrous, VTEC controllers, DC sport headers. I mean, it had about 320 horsepower in it, counting the nitrous. And it was a really nice vehicle. It's white, 5-speed. I really liked it. It was my primary vehicle for a while. Seems like I had that the same time I had the 4Runner, if I remember correctly. But I can't remember exactly where I got it. But I had it at the same time because when my wife blew the Mustang and the 4Runner, she took her Mustang back because I was driving it some, but I still had the Integra to drive, so I know I had it at the same time. I guess I could have put that in there. But I also had an Acura Integra 99 model LS version that I drove back and forth to work some. So, you know, it had almost 200,000 miles on it. It was a secondary vehicle that I just drove around town and back and forth to work. And I wound up trading that for an 04 Ford Focus station wagon. Yeah, that was sweet. So sweet. It was gold. Gold station wagon. But then again, the Integra had almost 200,000 miles on it, and the wagon had about 30,000 miles on it. I could not do that. I could not do it. Got the wagon, sold it almost immediately, but I drove it probably maybe a month. I don't know, maybe a month, and then I sold it, but I did own it. When I sold that, I bought an 05 Mitsubishi Eclipse. I do remember what order I bought these in. I just can't remember when I got them. It was towards the end. It was right before I got the Xterra because I sold the Eclipse to get the Xterra. The Eclipse, then again, I had to replace the EGR valve and a couple other things, and it was just getting on my nerves because it was dollaring me to death. So I fixed everything that was wrong with it. It was running perfect. Sold it to somebody else who probably has had no issues with it, just like the Explorer. And then I bought the Xterra again. And then you all know the Xterra story. Guy blew the engine in it, trying to fix the head gasket, had to replace the engine and all that crap. But that's where the Xterra come back into my life. Then I also owned a 2000 Nissan Frontier at the same time I owned my first F-150. Now it's kind of coming back to me. But it was silver, automatic, had it as a secondary vehicle, drove it around. I may have actually had that before I got the F-150, because I don't know why I would have bought two trucks. But anyway, I had it at that time because I drove it with the F-150 was still here. But I sold that to my buddy, and after I sold that, I don't remember what I bought after I sold that. Seems like I sold that and bought and put that down on the FX4. I think that's what I did. So I had it and the first F-150 at the same time. We have a CRV now. It's a 99 CRV that my stepdaughter drives. And so we do still have it. It's got a ton of miles on it, but it's a great vehicle. Can't praise the Honda CRV anymore. I mean, it's awesome. The air conditioner finally went out this year, but other than that, it just keeps on trucking. Knock on wood, it don't even leak any oil. I probably just jinxed it, but it's a great vehicle. I also owned a Nissan Sentra SE, a 91 that I used to drive back and forth to work, and I can't say anything about that. It's just a Sentra. It's an old Sentra. Had close to 200,000 miles on it. But for what I did with it, just driving it back and forth to work so nobody would door ding my vehicle while I was at work, it worked out perfect for me. My buddy liked that, and I traded it to him for an 89 Ford Bronco Eddie Bauer edition, full size. I want to say this. I know this video is getting a little long, and I'm going to try to close it out because that was the last vehicle. But I bought that vehicle when gas was cheap. And it cost me $104 to fill it up on the way home. $104, and gas was like $1 something. I mean, it was real cheap. I about died a little bit when I did that. It had like a 460 in it or something, and it got like 8 miles a gallon. It was stupid. So my advice is stay away from that unless you just make a ton of money, because that'll eat you up in gas, even worse than the Tundras are. But that rounds off all my vehicles, a little bit of story about each one of them. Hope I didn't bore you too much. This was the second video, so, you know, I did break it up into 2 videos at least. I hope you like this. You know, I'm sure as long as I'm on YouTube, I'll update you with all my new vehicles and all the new modifications I do to them and everything like that. I've got a few more planned for the Tundra, and I've not got them bought yet, but there are a few things that I plan on doing to that still yet, but not a lot. It's almost where I want it. But there again, that is all 37 of them that I've owned. Hope you enjoyed these last 2 videos. Please like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you next time.